In just 3 years from now, by 2019, 1 in every 4 jobs is going to be impacted by this automation. However, let me say that automation as a concept is nothing new. We human beings are pretty good at it. We have been doing this since the time we were cavemen and when we started using tools for gathering food or hunting animals. And if we move directly into the modern day or the industrialized ages, I think there were 2 key game changers back then. The first was when the steam engine was introduced, and the second was when Henry Ford introduced Model T. Why do I say that this is such an important step? It's because Henry Ford, when he introduced Model T, it was nothing new in terms of manufacturing a car. He essentially took apart the car manufacturing process, put it back together on a factory conveyor belt approach, and pumped in a lot of manual effort into that. And that enabled him to produce a lot of cars in the same amount of time. But why is it different today, and why are we talking about automation today? The difference is that we are on the cusp of automating human intelligence. And that's going to be a game changer going from here on. If we go on to understand the end-to-end automation spectrum, there are 2 major categories that we need to understand to work with it. The first one is where robotic process automation plays a key role, which is simple yet effective. And the second one is where intelligent automation, cognitive automation, plays a key role. However, my advice to you as a shared service leader would be to start experimenting as soon as possible with robotic process automation, as that is your first entry point into the automation world, which will gradually enable you to move up the value chain onto intelligent automation. Robotic process automation is a virtual robot that is installed onto your PC, which copies or mimics the action of a human being. The best part about this is it works seamlessly across all the application systems and all the legacy systems that you have in a seamless manner. It is not constrained by integrations as old IT applications are. And hence it is quite easy to implement, and the time to implement is quite quick as well. If we are to look at how much of the current activities in your organization could be automated, if we find all the manual activities that are within your organization, I can confidently say that 50% of these manual and repetitive tasks could be automated using robotic process automation. There are 2 things essentially that stand out. The first one is the cost associated with the implementation, and the time to implement is quite low. The cost is low and the time to implement is low as well. If I'm to compare this in terms of our traditional IT change approaches, or IT application installation approaches, or IT application build approaches, I would say that the differentiating factor for robotic process automation is the speed at which the change can be implemented. The applicability is so far spread that you can apply robotics in front office, you can apply robotics in back office, or you can apply robotics in the support functions. So if the length and breadth of the organization could be covered by robotic process automation. Now you must be thinking that it's such a wonderful technology, but how do I start, or what are the factors that I need to consider? As a senior shared service leader, I would recommend that you need to start thinking about these technologies that exist out there. So understanding the automation landscape becomes quite critical. Understanding the capabilities that these technologies bring is also critical. However, what matters is understanding the relevance of these technologies to your scenario. And if I'm to further drill down to implementing robotic process automation, then the starting points could be many, but I will drill it down to two. The first is that you already have an existing shared service organization. And the second point is where you're thinking about having a shared service organization. The first scenario could be that you already have an existing shared service organization where robotic process automation beautifully starts automating all the repetitive and the manual efforts that you already have consolidated in your shared services. And the second could be that you're thinking of putting a shared services organization in place. In here, what you should be thinking about is whether you should automate or whether you should offshore. And wherever possible, rather than going through the long curve of moving from one country to other, it would be much beneficial if you automate that process right here, right now. Irrespective of whether you have an organization, a shared services organization, or you're thinking of one, robotic process automation has changed the paradigm. You need to strategize what your automation strategy is going to be. While robotic process automation is going to make you think about automation in terms of low-hanging fruits, once you do develop an automation practice, you need to ensure that you can scale up the automation practice, moving on to cognitive automation at some point. We were asked to assess the automation potential in the shared services for this key client, wherein we went to understand the robotic process automation potential, and we recommended an end-to-end automation program setup for our client. The key was the business case, and the conclusion was that in just 1.5 years, if we went ahead with the automation program that we recommended, we could get our return, or the client could get their return on investment in just 18 months from the day they started. That was an aggressive approach. And if you look at a conservative approach, then it was around 2.2 years was the payback time. Now, these are very powerful numbers if you really look at it. In just 1.5 years, you get all the investment back. That is something to take notice of. The key to this is understanding the process transformation approach. And process transformation is not a new concept. You have been doing this for quite a long time. However, the key difference is going to be that you, as a senior leader, understanding the technological capability that is being put on the table, and understanding that robotic process automation is bringing IT, digitization, and automation together like never before. You can make the difference as a visionary leader if you try and experiment with these technologies and then envision as to where you want to be in 5 years from now. Because the world is going to be a different place in 5 years from now.